A while ago, Ubisoft announced a new game, XDefiant, a game made purely to chase trends. The bosses at Ubisoft said, "We want our own Call of Duty." So they hired a bunch of former Call of Duty developers, licked their finger, held it up into the wind to see where it blows from, and then they went to work. The result is a Call of Duty clone with a bunch of Ubisoft IPs stacked on top, and it's remarkably okay. To be honest, when I first saw XDefiant, I assumed this is going to crash and burn. It was loud, flashy, and it was... yeah, this.
It's fast-paced firefights meets punk rock mosh pit.
It kind of had the vibes of what Sega tried to do. We talked about their failed attempt at an FPS, Hyenas. While we were in the process of writing a script for the soon-to-be-released shooter Hyenas, we received news that the game has been cancelled. And it almost seems like Ubisoft took a look at that and said, "Alright, we are going to tone it down a little." XDefiant is now darker and less flashy, while the underlying game remained the same. And this seems to have paid off big time for them. Because XDefiant was a huge success. At launch they reported 1 million players. This success can be attributed to the fact that it is free to play. Yes, Call of Duty Warzone is free to play, but if you want Team Deathmatch and all the other game modes, you need to pay up. And with XDefiant, you get all that for free. In XDefiant, you have 6v6 matches. 2 teams comprised of different factions from other Ubisoft games like Splinter Cell and Far Cry compete for certain objectives, like capture the flag, king of the hill, or they're smashing each other's heads in Team Deathmatch. Players can choose between originally 5 and now with the first season, 6 different factions. And while XDefiant isn't marketed as a hero shooter per se, these factions essentially work as hero classes, with their special abilities and ultimates. But more about this in a bit, because it's the only thing that separates it from a pure Call of Duty clone, so it deserves more attention. Let us first get into the meat and bones of the game, running and gunning. Well, how does the saying go? It's better to steal something well than to reinvent it badly? This is the motto of XDefiant's base gameplay. It is Call of Duty. And so, XDefiant rolls onto the scene with a handful of realistic weapons that pretty much behave like you would expect them to do. SMGs are nimble and agile, assault rifles are the everything tool, LMGs are sluggish but pack a punch, and sniper rifles are incredibly annoying, unless you are the sniper. We've got classics like the AK-47, M4, MP5, P90, M870 and M249, but also the M60, my beloved pig. You also got a few more exotic weapons, although exotic isn't the right term in a video game environment. A double-barreled shotgun, the AA-12, a Mosin Nagant bolt-action rifle, stuff that modern militaries wouldn't be fielding. Or maybe they do. Even if none of these weapons are really anything new or special, it is a solid basis and most of these weapons should be known and very familiar to the average FPS gamer. The only really baffling thing to me, why is the top of the AK missing? Every other weapon seems to be complete. In true modern FPS fashion, you have a ton of unlocks for your weapons, which allows you to adapt them to your playstyle. Sadly, there are non-weapon specific unlocks, like the Russians' Cobra Red Dot sight for the AK or ACOGs for the AR style rifles. And why on earth can't I use iron sights on a sniper rifle? You let me use that old school carry handle M16, but no iron sights on a bolt action rifle. Come on, Ubisoft, where's all that freedom in choosing your sights? As you would come to expect with a free-to-play game, all of these things need to be grinded for. And as all weapons have the same attachments, you unlock them all in the same order, making it a very repetitive thing. Unlock grind in general is something we have to address later once again, since there are of course lots of things to unlock. And of course Ubisoft, kind as they are, have provided you ways of skipping all the grind. For a certain price. Well, of course, this is a free-to-play game after all. But first, onwards to the maps. With maps and game modes, we are once again in the copy and paste territory. There are currently 15 different maps, most of which were taken from other Ubisoft games, the ones from which the different factions originate. Of course, they have been slightly adapted for XDefiant. There's no map that is really super bad. All of them are pretty okay. Some of them actually quite pretty. For the game modes, Ubisoft relies on the classics as we discussed in the very beginning of this video. There's Team Deathmatch and Capture the Flag. But you also got things like Domination, in which the two teams fight over 3 different control zones. And then I need to mention Escort, where you have to move a payload like in Team Fortress 2 or Overwatch. And, well, why reinvent the wheel when it already has been invented? None of these modes are bad, but also none of them stand out. And payload matches are pretty fun in Team Fortress 2, so why wouldn't it be fun here? It's really a collection of tried and tested game modes, no experiments. And that is really the only thing you can knock the game down for, the lack of innovation. Moving on to graphics and sounds, it's once again fine, just like the maps. XDefiant is neither a graphical miracle nor a revelation in terms of sounds. It's current standard. And this is a real shame, because they used the Snowdrop engine, which was built by Massive Entertainment for The Division. And in the right hands, this engine can look pretty nice. And in this game, they certainly didn't push it to the limits. Now that we got the fundamentals out of the way, let us focus on what makes XDefiant more than just a COD clone: the factions. Each faction comes with different abilities, essentially serving as the hero classes. So I'm going to describe them to you, and you are going to make some mental notes as to which ones sound more and which ones sound less useful or balanced. We have the Third Echelon from Splinter Cell, Phantoms from Ghost Recon, Libertad from Far Cry 6, DedSec from Watch Dogs, the Cleaners from The Division, and the GSK from Rainbow Six Siege. Each faction comes with their own passive skill, chargeable ultimate, and 2 special abilities, of which you have to choose one before spawning. For example, the Third Echelon, where a suit turning the player almost invisible upon activation, or it allows them to locate enemies, and as their ultimate they have so-called Sonar goggles. Although that's not really a sonar. When activated, you effectively get a wall hack and a pistol with a super high damage output. To my surprise, they have called Ghost Recon's ghosts the Phantoms. Odd choice. But unlike their name, their selection of skills is always a good choice. They have a temporary energy shield and a portable tactical shield like the one in Counter-Strike 1.6, and they have an ultimate which projects an energy shield dome around you, while you're also getting a very powerful short-range weapon. I'm not sure if it's a pump gun or an energy weapon, it looks kinda weird. Some sort of sonic weapon. It transforms you into a noise marine for a short while. You are a killing machine. But don't let people get too close, cause they can just walk through your shield. Oh yeah, and they got more health points than other factions. So you are indeed feeling like a little space marine. The Libertad from Far Cry are the medics in this game. They can open a container that gives you and your allies in the area a healing boost. And then they can throw a gas canister which heals you faster, but in a more limited area. As an ultimate, they can temporarily boost their own and their teammates' HP to 200. And as a passive, they have a small healing buff that not only shortens the cooldown of the auto heal, but also increases its effectiveness. The DedSec from Watch Dogs can send out a small spider-like drone that independently seeks out opponents. It jumps into their face, shocks them, and makes it impossible for them to defend themselves. Furthermore, they can steal abilities from other factions with their hijack ability. And as an ultimate, they can disrupt the HUD of all opponents on the entire map and block abilities. And as a passive ability, they have a 3D printer that reproduces things like grenades. Onwards to the Cleaners from the game The Division. They can launch a fire drone, setting everything in their path ablaze, followed by an explosion upon contact with an object or when the maximum range has been reached. Pretty nasty thing. In addition, the Cleaners have a firebomb, a grenade or molotov of sorts that they throw underneath themselves, which sets the area around them on fire and kills most players pretty rapidly. As an ultimate, they can have a flamethrower, which is of course extremely lethal at short range, and as a passive ability they have incendiary ammunition, able to set the target on fire and slowly dealing damage over time. And then we got the GSK, the newest faction in the game. And they are just the German GSG9 from Rainbow Six Siege, but for some reason renamed to GSK. Since I don't have the faction and I won't invest the time grinding for it, let alone pay for it, I'll just let Ubisoft explain the abilities of the GSK.
Objective.
This is GSK, an elite strike force from GSG9, members of Rainbow Six. These counterterrorism specialists are your go-to operators when your back is against the wall. Drop their shockwire to build a high-voltage perimeter around objectives.
Shockwire is hindering hostile efforts.
Or deploy the active defense system to swat down incoming enemy explosives. GSK operators are tough, able to shrug off most headshots thanks to their ballistic helmets. But you can also take their fight to the enemy with the G52 tactical shield, equipped with a powerful frontal flash.
That's what I call crowd control.
So you might have noticed that not all of the skills are necessarily equally strong. There are certain abilities that make you perhaps a bit too powerful. If you drop the healing item as the Libertad and use the ultimate, you will hardly die at all. I've had situations where I was shot by 3 enemies at the same time and I didn't die. The third echelon's ultimate is absolutely OP, so-called Sonar goggles that highlight enemies through walls, paired with a pistol that can one-hit you even at a medium distance. Contrast that to the Phantom's ultimate ability with their shield bubble or the Cleaner's ability with their flamethrower. Super short range and therefore very, very situational. And the shield can just be overcome by walking up close. Printing new grenades for the DedSec is also nice, but mostly useless because you don't live long enough to use them, and when you die and respawn, you just get new grenades anyways. A problem with hero shooters in general is the balance between weapons and abilities, in particular when abilities are more unrealistic or outright superhuman. In games like Overwatch, they have it relatively easy, because the game is set in a fictional world with talking monkeys and children capable of building robots and so on. There, I have no problem with playing as Soldier 76 just for some hamster to roll around the corner in his ball and crush my skull. But with Tom Clancy, with XDefiant, it is our world with a few little twists and tweaks, slight variations here and there. It just feels unrewarding when you hunt down an opponent just for his spider robot to jump in your face. And then you die because you can't see anything. This always struck me as a very annoying skill. Balancing this kind of stuff is always incredibly hard. And I do have to give them credit, because for the most part they did an okay job here. Some skills and ultimates are just, well, more useful than others. You will see a lot more shields than grenade printers. One absolutely baffling aspect about XDefiant's design is the fact that they do not pit the different factions from the different IPs against one another. Splinter Cell versus Rainbow Six, so to speak. In XDefiant you can freely choose, irregardless of the team you are on. Defenders and attackers always have the same choices available. This can be kind of confusing because both teams look very much alike outfit-wise. There are no uniforms, let alone color-coded teams. And does this whole scenario make sense? No, not really. In case you wonder, no, the game does not have a narrative, and if it happens to have one, it totally eludes me. I have no idea why this game is as it is, other than, well, it would be fun to pit them against one another. Ubisoft could have built a setting like government versus rebels or high-tech versus low-tech, but that would have been way more work balancing-wise, and they really didn't want to bother with that kind of a hassle. So, to continue with the lack of narrative, each class faction has 3 characters, who are inconsequential. The abilities and loadout are not fixed to them. They are merely skins, to unlock or, of course, buy. And for these 3 skins, you can, you guessed it, buy skins for those skins. Or you grind. And this grind can be pretty atrocious. Collect 700,000 points to unlock DedSec. And then yet another 700k for the GSK. That is not exactly a small amount. Of course, you can get over 10k points in a single match, but it's still a significant grind. What is this? War Thunder? And we all know why they do this. They want you to spend money. The game is free to play after all. You can unlock factions for 10 euros, which unfortunately has become all too acceptable as microtransactions go. The gaming community has really accepted this over the years, and I guess we're not gonna change this anytime soon. Just to put this in perspective, on Steam Summer Sale, I can buy The Witcher 3 or Ghost Recon Breakpoint with that kind of money and still have €1 left. XDefiant is a solid free-to-play hero-ish shooter, which doesn't reinvent the wheel. It brings absolutely no innovation to the table and cannibalizes good franchises for content. It is remarkably okay and fun for a few rounds now and again. If you like shooters like this, you can take a look, but even if you don't, you won't miss anything. If you've played Call of Duty before, then this is nothing revolutionary. This is indeed Ubisoft's Call of Duty, with a bit of Ubisoft desperation oozing out of every nook and cranny. After failures like Skull and Bones, they need a new money printing machine. And it appears that they have found one, because this game seems to be pretty successful. They simply took the games that they had laying around, threw it all into a pot with a pinch of what the kids are playing these days, stirred it and molded it all into a form, and this is what came out. In the past, we would have laughed at a game like this and then played something better instead. But when you see the state of big franchises like Call of Duty, Overwatch, Battlefield, and so on, it's no wonder that a formulaic but solid and competently built shooter like this is so popular. I also have to give credit to Ubisoft, for they are usually patching a project for quite a long time. Just look at Rainbow Six Siege. That is why I believe that XDefiant won't disappear anytime soon. Yet again, it is not the Call of Duty killer some made it out to be. But it will have its niche with an existing community, so I assume if you come back in 2 years, you will still find players. So this has been XDefiant, a remarkably okay game that doesn't do anything new. And can someone please explain to Ubisoft how a sonar works? I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, you know what I would like you to do. Give this video a like, subscribe for future content, and if you absolutely love what we do, why not consider supporting us on Patreon, as our supporters there got to see this video well before anyone else. And our wonderful supporters are Lone Wolf, Zat Gladys, Wrapped in Glass, Cookie, Reval556, Dammit Stella, Rainbow Flash, Grizzly Bear, Strange Module, Inter, Chloe Surrit, Sir K, Ramgilama, Whiskey, Christoph, MTD Hub, Leggy Boy, Daniel, Fralem, CronyXS, Theovio, iMantrix, Arman, Ozzyloco, Frog on Unicycle Vape, Sidonai, Bobcat Racer, Golden Fox, Pocket, Mama Ghosty, Yellow Jello, Duik, Maki, and welcoming Takateo and Nunotsky. I hope I got those names right. A heartfelt thank you for your support. And you guys and everyone else, thanks for watching. So, see you guys next time. Until then, have a nice day, and as always, goodbye and guten Tag. Ich bin übrigens gerade verdammt neidisch auf deine Klimaanlage. Mein Miefquill hier hat hier gerade den Geist aufgegeben und boah, das dauert noch ein paar Stunden, bis das draußen abkühlt.